Hi, I'm Mike Hogue of Transformative Adventures, and I'd like to talk a little bit about the permaculture ethics and how we use those and apply them. See, I've had a lot of questions lately. In fact, I always have this question about how we use the permaculture ethics, especially with this idea of this sort of configuration. X behavior does not follow the permaculture ethics. I find very often when people start to think of permaculture as a system for judging other people, that they end up both unhappy with permaculture and with other people. And so that leads me to believe that permaculture might not be a very good tool to use for the purpose of judging other people's behaviors and actions. So we'll look at that in a second. But if permaculture's ethics and principles were not created to judge other people's behaviors, what was the purpose of them? Well, it turns out Bill Mollison and David Holmgren have given us a few reasons and a few ways to use the ethics and principles. Whenever we start to design something, we usually start with the idea of money first, and usually we don't consider the ethics at all. So permaculture, he says, starts with consideration of ethics first, so we know we're being involved in that. So from that perspective, the point and use of the permaculture ethics and principles is as a design tool. And the second use that Mollison gives is as an ethic, a shared ethic, to help us establish an alternative global nation. So in that case, the point of the ethics is to communicate to others our values as permaculturists. And to do those two jobs, are the permaculture ethics and principles a very good tool? I would say yes, they are. They're very good tools for those two specific jobs. One of the reasons why is they're very short, they're very concise, and they're just enough to get us to tap in to thinking about ethics and considering them. But once we start using them to assess the actions and behaviors of other people, we may start to find that they have some big drawbacks. When we think about the evolution of ethics, I'm sure that they went something a lot like this. You know, you start with just the idea that everybody should be pretty nice to each other, right? And soon you find somebody else doesn't want to follow that and goes around punching everybody. So then you think, well, I guess I shouldn't have to be nice to that guy, should I? So that just be nice to people, or people care, might not be a very complex enough ethic in order to help us really solve that problem. Do we be nice to that guy, or do we pop him off and kill him? Then we have to come up with a thou shalt not kill kind of ethic. And so we have a whole history of ethics and ethical considerations and ethical philosophy that has gone on for thousands of years. For example, I would consider the system of ethics that I use in order to judge my own behavior and understand the behavior of others, maybe a better way of putting it than the sort of judging that we often see with the application of the permaculture ethics and principles. And these are the very similar ideas in sort of Epicurean philosophy and in Buddhist philosophy of skillful means. In this understanding of ethics, generally we think that people are trying to do the best that they can to be happy, but some people use unskillful ways to seek happiness, and some people use more skillful ways. But even people who are acting unskillfully still want the same things that I want. They just want to be happy the same way that I do. It gives me a way of finding compassion with them, and it also gives me a way for understanding their behavior that's much more complex than they don't care about people care. Sure they do. They may care about people care just as much as I do. Maybe they're just going about valuing people care in a way that isn't as skillful as it could be. This also gives me a better way to interact with them, because if I can understand that what they really want is to seek happiness and to care for people, even if only themselves, then the key to that then is just simply to help them understand that their way of seeking happiness could be improved. They could seek happiness in more skillful ways and not have a bunch of angry people around them all the time who don't like them. I would choose my own set of ethics over the permaculture ethics and principles. They're just a better tool for me to assess behavior, but at the same time, that idea about ethics would not be a very good design tool for me in going about designing a garden or a home or a community garden or an organization. The permaculture ethics and principles and complete design system is a much better tool for doing that job than Epicurean or Buddhist ethics. But I'm not going to tell you what to believe. What do you think? Do you think that the permaculture ethics are a very good tool for judging people's behaviors? Do you think that the executives of ExxonMobil, say, don't believe that they are caring for people and caring for the earth? What do you think about Adolf Hitler? Do you think Adolf Hitler was sitting around thinking, I'm going to be bad to the earth and bad to people, and I don't care that it's not fair? Probably. He felt that what he was doing was good. So I'm going to end this video with a thought of what is permaculture's prime directive. The prime directive isn't judge other people. The prime directive is that the only ethical decision is to take care of ourselves, or take responsibility for ourselves and for our families. When it comes to the actions of other people, we may have a lot of different ways we can design to interact with them that may be more effective than just judging them, in my view. In fact, that would be another thing. If we're doing permaculture design, we would start with consideration of our ethics. Is judging someone a way of caring for people? Does that care for the earth? And then we would look for patterns to achieve our goals after we set goals. In this case, our goal might be to change the behavior of the person involved. So then we would look at patterns for how best to change that person's behavior. As it turns out, expressing judgment and negative feedback is usually not a research-based approach for changing people's behaviors. So more research-based approaches might be building long-term social capital with them, catching and storing social capital in the form of head and heart authority with them, so that they believe that you're a good quality source of information and that you care about the same things that they do, and you hear them and you listen to them. Another tool might be listening first to understand and then to be understood, so that you can understand why it is that they're doing the things that they want to do, what motivates them, and how they think that is going to lead to happiness, so that you can help them see better modes of moving towards happiness. And a third thing is that often we think the best way to change someone's behavior is to change their mind, possibly by calling them names or saying that they're not following the permaculture ethics and principles. But in reality, the best way to change someone's mind is by first changing their behavior. If you can get someone to adapt their behavior, even in a temporary condition, they will start to understand why that behavior works, and they'll start to see themselves as the kind of person who does that kind of behavior. So another tool that we can use there is simply modeling better behavior. Sometimes you don't have to reach out and try to control someone else and change their behavior through brute force. You can contribute what you would like to see to the situation instead. And another tool that I should mention is nonviolent communication. Okay, but I'm not going to tell you what to think. You can figure that out for yourself. What do you think? Are the permaculture ethics and principles a good tool for judging other people? Or should we keep them focused on what they were intended to do in the first place, which is help us create designs? Because if we don't answer that question right, we're likely to end up in a lot of frustrating situations. And then we'll be frustrated with permaculture too. Thanks.